Welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Bud Elliott, and that, my friends, who are watching us live at youtube.com/cover3, that is our St. Jude's auction winner, Wade. Thank you so much. He won the bid to be able to be on a Big 12 win totals pod. And right now, we've got another auction going on right now. If you would like to be on the ACC Win Totals Pod for August 2nd, we're going to include the link within this podcast description if you're listening, and in this podcast description on YouTube. So go and check that out if you would like to be on our spot here in the Wade spot. Okay, you're the first one that have been part of the Win Totals episode.
I was going to say, sounds like I'm coming back because that's the one I want to be on.
That's right, because, and as we were talking right before we got started, and we've got Wade's best Big 12 win totals pick will be coming up in just a little bit. But Wade, you are a Louisville Cardinals fan, double graduate, is that right?
No. So Western Kentucky undergrad, and I love my toppers.
So it's all Jeff Brom. We're just all like following the path.
Absolutely, man. It was awesome when he came to Western Kentucky because it was the year after basically Willie Taggart built up the roster. And then Brom just annihilated Conference USA for 2 years. And we've always said with him, like, he could switch sidelines and win with your players. And so we are super excited to have him back. It was very fortuitous when the news broke that Satterfield decided to jump to Cincy, and pretty much everybody knew what was going to happen. Frankly, a little inside pool from us. We all kind of thought Brom might have avoided it the first go around because Bobby Petrino tends to leave a roster in a crater. And so
you don't say, Falcons fans.
Yeah. So it was kind of nice to have Satterfield come in, get it back where we have, not 25 wide receivers and just 5 offensive linemen. And, we had a hell of a recruiting class this last cycle, and he's brought in, I think, 20 transfers. And so the Louisville fan base is ready to go. We are quite confident that we are going to win a lot of games this year.
So I talked to Brom yesterday. I had never interviewed Jeff. I think he does a really good job. And I asked him a question. I wasn't sure how he'd answer it. And I was like, hey, not to disrespect your opponents, but all the computer metrics have you guys as the easiest schedule in the ACC, and by a lot. Like, how much pressure is there on you to win immediately? It's like a ton. It's very important we get off to a hot start, right? It helps us in recruiting. It helps to establish a culture of winning. He's like, my job is to win football games, and we have a great opportunity. We don't disrespect our opponents. We have a great opportunity in front of us.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I figured he'd give me some, not like, hey, everybody we play is great. And he's just like, no, we need to run this thing.
Yeah, no. And no Clemson, no Florida State, no North Carolina, even though I'm not as afraid of North Carolina as some.
You never want to have to play Drake May, though.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And dude, we not only love the win total that we got already, there might be some action on to win the ACC as well. But I know it's the Big 12 pod. So, I can talk more about myself, more about Louisville, whatever you want.
Well, so before we'll do one more on this one, because I loved Brom yesterday was talking about, for everything about being Louisville's native son and all the excitement, he feels pressure not to let them down, right? Yep. Like, he doesn't want to disappoint his family. And the expectations are super high. It's awesome. I know you're going to be in for an awesome season. So Wade, what is your Saturday like? How do you enjoy taking it? Let's say Louisville, you mentioned you've got season tickets. Louisville's playing away. How are you building out your college football Saturday? How sick does it get when you're trying to take in a full slate?
So there's one thing that is very beneficial to my marriage is I don't really watch the NFL. So it is known that the Saturday in the fall is sacred. I've got the 70-inch 70-inch TV with 255s above it, and try to just watch as many games as possible. We'll try to build an away trip in every year. We were in Death Valley for Lamar versus Deshaun.
Me too. The game was incredible.
Yeah, we won't talk about the spin rather than the dive from James Quick, but other than that, just awesome experience. We paid more for our tailgating spot than we did the actual tickets. We were right with the stadium behind us and the RV lot. It was awesome. It was a great day. But yeah, just try to, line out the bets that I want for the noon session, and then make sure those games are on and which ones are going to be bounced back. And then as noon goes on, see how we're doing and what we want to roll over on. So just try to, build it out for here are the noons I want to watch, the 3:30s. And then, life does have to go on. So there's sometimes where you have to sacrifice a morning or an evening, but make sure you're seeing our game and then, whatever the marquee matchups are that are big.
And then, of course, the Cover 3 podcast Saturday night. No. You don't have to stay up with us.
No, that's on. That is on, as I was telling you, that is on Monday morning on the way into work because I'm too busy. Like, dude, one of the best nights last football season was that USC-Utah game. And live lining Utah every time they fell behind. Because it was like, dude, so I did not coin this term, and it's a little inappropriate. It's not vulgar. But the term tragic magic, and like, dude, Utah had that player that passed away on the helmet.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, my buddies and I are sitting there texting each other like, it's midnight at this point because they can't stop scoring. That game took forever. And we're just like, dude, Utah is not losing this game. And that beast of a tight end could not be tackled by the midgets that Grinch has on his defense. So, it was like, dude, they're just not going to lose. And it was awesome. It was so much fun. So
they're not losing with the 22 on the helmet. Like as a principal play, matching that live line.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic approach.
Not to jinx this. Can we just comment on how nice the Wi-Fi is? Like we always are so super sketched to have guests on. Like, I don't know if Wade did Zoom on trial, like back during COVID trial or something like that. But bro, your Wi-Fi setup is better than some like head coaches inside their athletic departments. This is
yeah. So one of the nice things to come out of COVID was Zoom and doing depositions, and we don't ever do trial through Zoom or anything,
right.
But it's giving me so many hours of my life back. And normally, if I had to travel to take a expert deposition, now with Zoom. So we made sure, and my law partner, her husband is a techie. And so credit to her, we've got the Google Mesh and it never fails. Like, it is one of the most important things in the office is the Wi-Fi and the mesh.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Bud and I are on ACC Media Days hotel Wi-Fi, so he totally jinxed
I got
us.
away from that thing. I'm back at the courtyard, saving CBS money, Chip. I'm not paying special media rate for like the jacked up Weston rate. I'm at the courtyard.
Now, question: did you have the extra monitors shipped in again, or are you just rolling with one?
We tried to Instacart a belt.
We did try to Instacart a belt. Chip forgot a belt, so he almost borrowed my belt. So actually, and we will get to Big 12 stuff. I know because although this is kind of good because like Tom's going to be here in like 20 minutes. So
cool.
I
can riff for as long as you need.
No free ads, but my wife bought this for me. She's like, I don't know if this will work, but it is really cool. It wraps around your laptop, and then there's a monitor here and a monitor here. So it like super lightweight, fits into carry-on. If somebody from this company is watching this, no free ads, I will endorse this product if you guys want to sponsor it. So.
All right. Well, the premise was Wade was going to bring us a Big 12 win total lock. Let's hear it. What do you got your eyes on right now?
All right. So do I have to go by the people that pay you the money and their number, or can I go by a number?
You can choose another. And
you can choose another book.
Yeah, the price.
It's got to be like a U.S. domestic book that like actually.
Oh yeah. No, I mean it is
no red bet 4411.
Can I tell you I don't know if I want to tell you the site because I don't want people to start juicing it up. But Kansas State on FanDuel is 7.5, not 8.5, and that was mind-boggling to me, and that is where I'm putting my money. And I love that win total because numerous reasons. Number one, I think I know Sonny Dykes went to the championship last year, but I still think Kleeman's the best coach in the Big 12, and I think he runs a program that's quarterback proof. I think that's been seen the last two seasons where the starter went down each season, and the kid who's now going to be the starter, he's already started 15 games, I think. So anyway, I like that. And then do the schedule. I have the schedule up on my other monitor, and I cannot see this team starting anything other than 4-0. I mean, I know Missouri's an SEC school, but I don't care if that game's at Missouri or on the moon. Kansas State's going to beat them. Then they get Central Florida at home bye week. And so then I'm looking at 4-0 going into, the rest of the Big 12 season. All I need them to do is go 4-4. like cash it. I love that win total.
So you were getting it at 7.5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's juiced. I mean, I think it was minus 180, but I'll pay that because, it's not half a game. It's a full game.
Wait, Caesars actually has minus 65 on 7.5.
Well, there we go.
Look at that, man. Save you 15 cents.
Absolutely.
I am very slightly over here. Like for me, it's not like a hugely bettable edge, but I think there's like some edge. When I bet season win totals, it's like, do I really want to tie up my money for 4 months or 6 months or however long it's going to take, depending on when you bet. I do agree they should beat Missouri on the road, but I don't know that Missouri plays good enough defense. And last year, Kansas State beat them like crazy, but that was like a big time turnover game. I think that Missouri had 3 turnovers inside of its own 30, or I'm trying to remember. I don't remember every play of every game, but like it's, there's a bunch of turnovers in their own end. They are only a 4 road game Big 12 team. I don't like that they get Iowa State to end the year. I would prefer to play, and we'll get to this, but I would prefer to play Iowa State early in the year, preferably in the first third of the year, most likely. The roadies are.
Some players are missing 4 games, maybe, I don't know,
correct.
Hypothetically in a hypothetical world.
Guys they decided not to bring to Big 12 Media Day, kind of conspicuously.
Yeah.
Like at Kansas, it's not a difficult road game. At Texas, actually, I think might really be if Texas is a real deal. Lubbock is always a tough trip.
And I'm looking at that one as just call it an L, and I'm still feeling fine.
Yeah.
I think there's only one certified loss. It's just like a lot of this conference. You're just looking at let's see, I've got my toss-ups at Missouri, at Oklahoma State, at Texas Tech, TCU, and Baylor at home. Like those are all going to be games where no one's favored by more than 7 points against each other.
Yeah. I have a couple questions about this team if we want to nitpick the pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I like Will Howard, but it does concern me a little bit that the coaching staff kept going back to Adrian Martinez. So what did they see in the kid that they weren't ready to go all in? I'm not sure that they are good at receiver. I mean, you lose Malik Knowles, you lose Warner. They lost a couple important pieces. Deuce Vaughn actually caught a ton of passes. He had 70 targets, I think, last year as a running back, which is, that's basically a number 2 receiver on any non-tempo team. And then I don't know that they have I don't think they have difference makers on the D-line. I think they'll be good. They're always well coached. But last year, some of the dudes they had were really difficult to block. And I could see a thing where they're simply well coached, but they don't have guys winning one-on-one battles at the same rate at which they won one-on-ones. And in the secondary, I actually trust them on this, but God, they lost a lot. Like Brents was a really good athlete. Hayes. They lost their top 4 guys in secondary and a good number of backups. So I could see what if the young quarterback struggles a little bit and the defense drops from a top 25 defense to more like a top 35, top 40, power rated type defense. I could see a 7-5 downside here, but I do.
I can't see that. I was like,
okay,
I'm on the over. And then I even started to spin it forward. Like if the market moves and this thing jumps to 8, are you still there? And I think 8-4 is where this thing lands, but 7-5 seems 7-5 seems less likely than 9-3 does to me. So I'm with you at 7.5, sky and over. And then even if this thing happens to move to 8 or at whatever book you're at, you see it at 8, I still think you've got a little bit of push insurance in your back pocket right there.
Well, for me too, it's just, I do understand it's 8 starters back on the offense, the entire offensive line returns. I feel like they're one of the only teams in the Big 12 that can actually just lean on you. Where I do understand the defense is having to replace a lot, and they had that dude that was all world on the edge. But then I was looking at the schedule, and I'm like, who's really going to take advantage of that? Texas. Yeah. I feel like Texas Tech is the second most talented team in the Big 12, even ahead of Oklahoma. So I don't like that they're at Texas Tech. But then after that, I'm like, I think Houston's going to be a dumpster fire. Even if Iowa State gets those dudes back, the game's in Manhattan. That scares me a lot less than being on the road. And then, Kansas, that might as well be in a parking lot,
They do have kind of an early bye It's after the UCF game on September. Like they're off the week of September 30th, and then I think that's a short rest game. Is that a Friday night game at Oklahoma State?
Yep.
And then at Texas Tech, so you do get the extra day of rest before you go to Lubbock. Back-to-back roadies. Like Oak State, Texas Tech, TCU, Houston, Texas, Baylor, at Kansas and then Iowa State. Like that is kind of a tough finish if you play at like a top 25 or top 20 level. That's pretty hard. If you are like last year they played at like a top 10 level power rating wise, even after Bama stomped them. That's not that hard. So it kind of, I mean, look, no duh statement here. How well they do will depend on how good of a team they are.
Yeah,
right? But it's sort of one of those, like, Georgia's schedule is not hard for a natty contender. It's pretty hard if you're like just a good
team. No.
Wade, do you want to hang out and do the rest of the Big 12?
Sure.
Do you have time?
Oh, dude, I've looked at them all, and
all right.
If I log off, all I'm going to do is listen to it.
Okay, cool. Well, because I was thinking about it. We were planning to do Kansas State first. We're kind of off and rolling. Sounds like we got 2 strong overs, and Bud slightly leaned to the over. Dadgummit, we got more Big 12 teams to go. So that means we will turn our attention to TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor, and the rest of the Big 12 OGs. Big 12 win totals. Wade jumping on board. Next.
Come and get it.
So much new beavis.
So when are you going to put those needles in? Ow, my back.
So much new butthead.
Yeah, baby. Parenthood is cool.
I now pronounce you husband and husband.
This is the happiest day of my life.
So many all new reasons.
Hail, dim-witted earthling.
To stay on the couch.
Let the games begin.
An all-new season of Beavis and Butthead now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus. Use promo code NACHOS for 1 month free.
Man, Tom is having a day.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, Wade won the eBay auction for St. Jude's Children's Hospital to be able to join us. He is hanging out to pick the Big 12. There is a link in this episode description if you would like to do the same thing on August 2nd for the ACC. And we just sort of jumped into it, but we cannot let an episode go without hearing from the general manager of Vanderbilt football. No. So I know it was about Louisville's season. What I won't do, Wade, is I won't read the scores of the last games out. That's when it gets really sad. So let's do it.
As much as I think it's the under is a safe play, like I can't even.
Count them up. Count them up. How many games are going to win this fall?
I can't fathom 8 wins.
How many games are going to win this fall?
I just can't. I don't see it. It's not on there. It's not the schedule I'm looking at. Unless there's another schedule somewhere.
I mean, no man has ever been more right in his life. So that's called nailing it.
I mean, yeah, that was incredible. I remain truly amazed at how bad it went. Because there's also the against the spread number where like their margin of victories were all like 20 to 50 points, but even they weren't.
Dude, I mean, it's literally the first time in my life I bet it against my team. I mean, it got to a point where we all knew. It was just like, dude, it doesn't matter where they put the line. Everybody's quit. Everyone here knows they quit. We might as well make our season ticket money back.
Let's go. All right.
We should do like a draft one day of like dumpster fire disasters, and how many of the top picks would be like Bobby Petrino seasons or Todd Graham seasons, right?
Yeah,
like it would be
pretty high up there.
Yep.
All right, or maybe a team that could have competed for the Big 12 going 5-7 because they were tired of their coach. Then all of a sudden, Sonny Dykes comes in, and hello, we're in the college football playoff. All right, the TCU Horned Frogs. They also have a win total at Caesar Sportsbook of 7.5. Open the season with Colorado at home. Coach Prime come to town. Then Nichols. Then at Houston. SMU in the rivalry game. West Virginia at Iowa State. BYU at home at Kansas State. If you did not do the counting as I was speaking, those are 8 games without an off week. They hit the off week on October 28th. Return to action at Texas Tech, Texas at home, Baylor at home, at Oklahoma. Kind of a tough conclusion as well. Offense lost everything in terms of production. We do have Chandler Morris, the player who famously beat out an eventual Heisman Trophy finalist in camp. So he comes in. A lot of couple of Alabama transfers. Trey Sanders is in there. JoJo Earl is in there. Really relying on the portal to restock the skill positions. And a little bit sneaky here, defense does bring back a lot. And Joe Gillespie did a really good job with that defense last year, another year in the system. We'll see if that ends up being an important part of their success. So, Bud, I'll let you get first word here. What are you doing with TCU at 7.5?
I am going to go over here as well. Slight. I mean, I'm not way over on this, but I do think this team has a lot of really good players, especially in the secondary who are back. I think they're pretty good at linebacker. My main concern is defensive line. I'm not sure they have a whole lot of difference makers there. I thought D'Abreu, the transfer they took from East Carolina, was actually pretty decent player. O-line, like Steve Avila was a really good player and got drafted. And this team lost 5 top 125 draft picks. Like that's a lot, and 8 overall. And if you're Georgia, you're like, oh, that's kind of a down year. But if you are TCU, that's like, okay, like losing 8 draft picks is probably one of the high marks in their program, if not the high mark. I would have to guess. I do think they're probably better at receiver than people think, and like I think that Sonny and Kendall Briles know how to coach offense. They know what they're looking for at those positions, and I would expect this team to continue to score. The schedule also is one fascinating opening week game against Colorado, to be honest, because they both run the same offense. The stuff that Sean Lewis is running at Colorado is the same stuff Kendall's running at TCU. So, like TCU and Colorado, like how will they defend that? I do think obviously TCU will win that ball game. I feel really good about them getting 4 out of these 5: Colorado, Nicholls State, SMU, West Virginia, BYU, all at home. If they get 4 of those, then they need to get and maybe 4-1 in that stretch. 5-0 is certainly very possible as well. Like at Houston, I do think they're a better team than Houston. At Iowa State, I think they're better than Iowa State. At Kansas State, that's a tough one. At Texas Tech, that's tough. Texas, Baylor, like that, and then at Oklahoma. The stretch here is really hard to finish. I mean, they're going to need to stay healthy, because if they get banged, you could also finish 0-5, right? But I'm going to go very slightly over. I do trust this staff. I think they're really well coached.
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking at this one, for me, it was just a complete stay away the whole time, because I was like, dude, TCU, like the variance could be just so wide. Not as wide as Colorado. I don't think they'll bottom out because the beginning of their schedule is so easy. But it's wild to think you could have a win total ticket in your hand and you start out 7-0 and you're like, oh hell, this still might go south on me.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would, and as somebody who's endorsing Kansas State, I like that they're on the back end of a very long stretch without bye. So I think they definitely lose that game. So I think they start at best 6-1, but I mean, they're going to be favored in all those games. But I mean, dude, like for me, it really is. It's 7-5 or it's 8-4. I don't think there's really anything else that happens, and I wouldn't touch that. I mean, if you make me put a bet on it, I would bet over, just because I could see him winning Baylor, but I wouldn't touch it.
Of their toss-up games, they do have some key ones that are going to be at home. I'm over on this one as well, and I've even tried to push myself to, if this moved to 8, would you still be over? Because I don't know. It would be incredibly disappointing for everything that we saw from Sonny Dykes, from the staff, from Coach Kaz, the support staff, like the pieces that he has put in place to change the vibes in that building and around that program. Like I think that even when you lower your expectations, you still have to give Sonny Dykes the opportunity to be able to go and exceed them again. So I'm over on this one. I don't see a major step back to where they're going 6-6 or 7-5. I think that this is an 8-4 team for sure. And then if they can, they won a lot of 1-score games last year. So what does that mean? Does that?
I was going to say, when you're analyzing this, when you look at a team where, I mean, it's like, did they just max out all their luck? And every good break that they could get, they got, right? I mean, how many QBs did they knock out? The
knocking out QBs is one thing, but I do on some level, try to address the human aspect of like the reason why they're winning it in 1-score games is because of some level of overall team composure and focus and like resiliency to where you're not going to be, slipping, missing the assignment on that huge pressure packed third down midway through the fourth quarter. That's going to often end up deciding the game like that. I think that TCU might have gotten so much better at the margins that's got to be something we've got to take into consideration. So we got an over, and an over on the Frogs.
Count them up.
Now we turn our attention to Texas Tech. Oh boy, great first season for Joey McGuire. The vibes are tremendous. The talent on this roster, especially on the offensive side, is going to be among the best in the entire conference. They've got a schedule though that does open up at Wyoming, where, come on.
It's gonna be windy in Laramie.
I mean, come on, Texas Tech. How you gonna throw the ball when the wind's whipping like that out in Laramie? Come on. All right. Then they return back home, opening up the home schedule against Oregon, Tarleton State. After that, a little bit of a break. Then at West Virginia, Houston at home, at Baylor, Kansas State at home, at BYU. Yes, this is another team with 8 straight games without an off week. Off on the 28th, back in action against TCU at home, then at Kansas, UCF at home, then at Texas. So as we are looking at a win total of 7.5, a little bit more even pricing here. Wade, first word, what do we like?
Love it. Love the over. I love Texas Tech. I was over on them last year, and they beat Texas in overtime, I think, and I was like, this one's done. Dude, I think so. Few things. One, I like the schedule, even though I know it's 8 straight weeks. I love that they get Oregon at home. I don't know what the spread of that game is yet. It's probably out, but I would not make them anything less than a touchdown. So I think they'll start at worst 2-1. I hate that they get West Virginia at West Virginia, but I am very bullish on Neil Brown is not going to make it to November. So I think they win that game. Houston, I don't think is going to be good. The game at Baylor is concerning, then Kansas State, but I love that, I just think the talent level. And then they get Central Florida towards the end of the season. And so I like, we'll talk about this later with Oklahoma State too, but I like anybody getting one of the people moving up in conference. We at Louisville did that, and we could see the attrition in it. I just think this team's a good team. And but I will ask you later what the ticket is for them to win the Big 12, because I think you should have action on that as well.
I am going under here. And I respect all the points that Wade made. A couple things I don't like. As somebody who still feels a little bit jet lagged over this week's travel, and granted, I'm not flying private. Tesh just called me, so maybe he's calling me like, "Hey, we're going to fly cover 3 private from now on."
No, they're not.
Yeah, probably not. This is a lot of travel, right? A lot of long travel. They go at Wyoming, at West Virginia, at Baylor, which obviously is not that far away, from Lubbock to Waco, but at BYU, at Kansas, and then finishing at Texas. Like, that's a lot of miles, man. This is kind of like a Seattle Mariners baseball type travel schedule where you're looking up like, oh, the Mariners fly like 7,000 miles more than anybody else does over the course of the season. It's a couple more cross-country flights. They're not going to lose to Wyoming. I do think Oregon has a better quality of player than they do. And like that's going to be a war for sure. But like at West Virginia, I don't think that team is quitting on Brown, at least not that early in the year. And like, I think almost your entire handicap for this team comes down to, do you buy the idea that they would lose a top 10 pick and still get better on defense? Because some of the guys who cover the team really believe that they are better on defense this year. And I'm like, they were pretty bad last year. So, I had them in like the 90s. I thought their defense was all smoke and mirrors. Maybe they can improve on that with continuity. I'll buy that argument. The offense is still good, but like, do you have are they just like good college guys who are pretty experienced? Do they have a lot of like next level type dudes? I'm not fully sold on that. I think McGuire's a good coach. I think Kitley, the OC, is a really good coach.
Yeah,
but I'm more comfortable with an under 7.5, especially because I already went over slightly on TCU and Kansas State. So, and these teams do all play each other.
This one feels very fair. I'm not necessarily. My pick here for the show. I've got this one as a lean to the under. I think that, even though I believe Texas Tech will beat Wyoming, that doesn't mean it's not going to be somewhat tricky. And the fact that it's at BYU, and we talked a little bit about that with BYU, but that is at BYU in Provo as the 8th straight game. When the physicality that we expect the Cougars to bring is going to absolutely pop its head up here. In the home road split, they end up on the wrong end of that. I mean, they've got 6 true road games. Wade's Louisville Cardinals have 3 true road games. Texas Tech has 6 true road games on this schedule. It's almost the reverse Oklahoma, where I looked at Oklahoma's roster and depth chart and I was like, I don't know. And then I looked at the schedule and I found myself changing my tune in terms of a win total. I look at Texas Tech and I think about what they are going to be every single Saturday, and I'm super excited. But I'm on the under here just because I think it's a little bit tough just the way everything unfolds.
I want to add 2 things here. One is that Texas Tech played with optimal strategy on 4th downs last year. But it's similar to blackjack. You can play optimally and you can increase your bet size when the count is in your favor, right? You make no errors. And they were one of the high, I know about my friend Bill Connolly had a piece that they had the most points added for making correct decisions on 4th down. But they were also probably unsustainably good in those 4th downs. You could make the correct choice to go for it. Your process is good. They were great process, but also great result. And having great process is definitely repeatable. Having those great results from that, I'm not sure is that repeatable again. I mean, they won 4 games, I think, basically because of what they did on 4th down, which is awesome.
Texas,
and I think
for sure. Joey McGuire out coaching Sarkisian is that was right there. We should have known immediately what it was going to be.
Yes, 100%. I think okay. The other question I have here, almost everybody we know who covers the Big 12 is all over this team as the sleeper to win the league and thinks it's really damn good. And I don't live in Big 12 country, so this one kind of a little uneasy when guys I read in the Big 12, damn, they all like this Red Raider team.
So
go ahead.
To add to counterpoint, one, it's year 2, right?
Yeah.
Of Joey McGuire. I think he's a phenomenal coach. And I can't remember if I said this when I first spoke. I saw an interview with him where he said he thinks this team is 13.5 points better than last year's team. And I also think that I'll find the article and I'll
No. I'm not doubting your.
Okay.
I was just because I will say power ratings.
If you give me 13.5 on last year's team, I'm betting my house on the 2022 Red Raiders.
Yeah. But power ratings wise, they do check out in a lot of power ratings as the 3rd or 4th team in the Big 12.
And then the other aspect of it that I love is the way the first few games start out. I think they can beat Oregon at home. And then, I know it's a lot of travel, but dude, these guys are all 18 to 22 years old. How much does that really affect them? So yeah, I mean, I think they are loaded with talent. And I think they have that belief that we talked about. And as a Western Kentucky Hilltopper, I watched that Kitley offense. And I watched Texas Tech last year. And, the last point I wanted to make, I feel like they've been hitting NIL like Louisville has.
The investment there is legit. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think they brought in some good transfers. So that's why I like it.
12-1 is the best I could find right on the U.S. books for them to win the conference.
That's worth a sprinkle.
If you think they're beating Oregon, you need to be betting them to win the conference. Yeah, that's a different level of team.
Oh, wrong one.
Count them up.
Yeah, we actually were 2 unders and an over. That was not a Latifah. All right, we turn our attention to the Baylor Bears, where, man, Dave Aranda, always thoughtful. He's had some regrets with the way they handled things last year. He does some. I love listening to him talk about coaching. He said he did a little bit of self-scouting. Things he wish he had done a little bit different. I wonder if he was talking about the quarterback position. We'll see. In terms of the 2023 schedule, Tom Fernelli has electricity.
This guy.
And
Danny,
internet.
what the hell happened? You look completely
You on a
different.
generator?
Tom, everything good?
Yeah, I have electricity, which is a better situation than it was 15 minutes ago. So
Yeah. Tom, this is Wade. Wade
Hi,
won
Wade.
won the auction. We've got an auction going for the ACC right now if you want to jump on board. And we're talking about the Baylor Bears, who have a win total at Caesars Sportsbook of 6.5. Pretty heavy juice here, so maybe we'll discuss what you would like if it was 7 too. Opens with Texas State at home, then a visit from Utah at home, Long Island at home, Texas at home. Then they go to play Big 12 newcomer UCF on the 30th, and then back home for Texas Tech. So that is 5 of your first 6 games, all in the comfy confines of Waco, Texas. Off week on October 14th, back in action at Cincinnati, Iowa State at home, Houston at home, at Kansas State, at TCU, and West Virginia at home. Tommy, you good? You want to get first word on this? What are we doing? What are we doing with 6.5?
We are cautiously taking the over. I don't have a ton of faith in this one. I feel like it's my projections are 6.8 wins. It's not so much an overly difficult schedule. Like Utah as a non-conference game is difficult, but at least that game is in Waco. Texas State and Long Island should be 30, 40-point wins. Getting Texas at home at least makes it more plausible that they can win that game. But as we went over in the first part of this show on Monday, we're all kind of high on Texas. I don't think Baylor's winning that game. UCF on the road will be tough. Texas Tech, I caught you guys at the end there talking about the Red Raiders. I'm with you, Chip and Bud. I'm on the under there. I think that's a winnable game for Baylor at home. And then after the bye, things kind of lighten up quite a bit. Like, Cincinnati on the road, Kansas State on the road, TCU on the road. It could be worse. It's not easy, but it could be worse as far as a road slate. And then those 3 home games against Iowa State, Houston, and West Virginia. And it's both, again, as we've talked about a lot, Houston and West Virginia at that point of the year could be interim coach, quit watch kind of situations. So it's not the overall highest confidence. I have skepticism about that offense. I have skepticism about the quarterback position and what they'll be able to do. As we saw last year, there were some problems there. But I do think that overall, defensively, this team will be solid. And in this conference, Baylor is a team that I think is in that low second, high third tier where they're going to be competitive every week and they're going to get up. They're going to squeak some wins and they'll probably lose some games they probably should win. So again, I have them going bowling. I think they get to 7 wins, but I'm not betting it.
Yeah, 7 and 5 to me is the most likely outcome here. So I'll go ahead and go over the 6.5 at the juice. It's not not a bet for me. There are some real concerns here. I do think that Dave Aranda is a good coach, but we say that about almost everybody in this league. Like who is legitimately a bad coach in this league? You might say Neil Brown, but then again, I thought he did an excellent job at Troy, and maybe it's a lot harder to win at West Virginia as they're sort of a take the check, take the losses type team. I mean, we can ask Wade how much easier it was to win ball games in back when they were in the Big East, right?
Wade, what do you have against Cincinnati's coach?
2nd and 8. We're gonna do a stretch run to the left. Who saw that coming?
Hey, you should listen. No buyouts and no bad feelings.
Oh,
okay?
no, dude.
Yeah. He left and he opened the door for what needed to happen. Made it a lot easier on everybody.
No, we all tip the hat and say thank you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Wade, what are you doing with Baylor? Oh, sorry, but didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I don't want to just say the same thing as Tom said. I am concerned about their O-line. That is quite a bit.
Yeah.
To do. And I know their OC came from BYU, and so I think there's at least some level of floor expectation when you take players from where you came from that you at least know what you're getting there. And he took the Barrington brothers, but they did lose a lot on the O-line. And I mean, Siaki Aika, the D tackle there was massive, and now he's gone. But the schedule's kind of friendly. I'd rather get Utah early than late this year. Well, I guess in a year, and they do only have 4 road games. So, and they get most of the new teams, right? No BYU, but they get UCF, they get Cincy, they get Houston.
4 bottom 6 teams the way that I looked at it. And it's all sort of in that back stretch where you lose the 2 road games against quality opponents, sure, but you're probably going to win those other 4. And you mentioned Utah early rather than late. Also, Utah anywhere other than Rice-Eccles Stadium, please. Being able to get Utah early and on the road's a good opportunity. I am very uncomfortable about how comfortable I am with the over, if that makes sense. I'm yuck, but I see this one as a pretty strong over, to the point where if it moves to 7, I might still tell you to take the over. But offensive line is a very strong concern. I didn't have that in my notes, but I would agree with that you need to really be betting on Jeff Grimes to do his Jeff Grimes. We're going to build a good old big offensive line and get out there and establish something at the line of scrimmage, because the personnel drain that they've had over the last 2 seasons is significant for sure.
Yeah. I mean, when I was looking at the 8 teams that were going to be on the show today, I was just like, dude, Baylor feels like it's right where it should be. Don't touch it. I don't have anything dynamite to drop in other than, I literally was going to ask, I was like, they kept the offensive coordinator, right? I'm still shocked he hasn't.
New DC, different OC.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think Baylor at 6.5 is right where it should be. I'm not going to waste anybody's time giving any analysis.
Hey, we don't call it the Push podcast. You going over? We're going on.
Oh, no,
I will
go.
Podcast. We got to have a for the graphic.
Because of Utah, Texas, Texas Tech, Kansas State, and TCU both being on the road. I know those other games aren't, but because they have those 5 teams, and I think all those Eileen loss, I'm going to go under.
All right. Coming up on the other side, we keep it rolling with Oklahoma State, Kansas, Iowa State. And man, a lot of us have chalked up a West Virginia game to a loss. So what's their win total going to look like? That and more next.
It's time. The best Transformers yet.
There you go.
Is now streaming on Paramount Plus.
This is going to be fun, man. Now let's talk to your manifestation.
Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Rated PG-13. Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
How many games are going to win this fall? Is the question for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Caesars Sportsbook right now having a win total of around 6 wins. Heavily juiced to the over, though. Schedule opens up Central Arkansas at home, and then it's a trip to the desert to go play Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State. Then back home for South Alabama. Quality Sunbelt team. Then at Iowa State before a break on September 30th. Back in action against Kansas State on a Friday night at home. Then Kansas at home, at West Virginia, then Cincinnati at home, then Bedlam, Oklahoma at home, followed by at UCF, at Houston, and then BYU at home. Bud, you recently hinted at some Oklahoma State optimism, and I can't tell if that was in response to the market or overwhelming negativity, or do you see something in this roster or this schedule that you really like? What are you doing with the Cowboys?
Yeah, I just think that that pretty damn confident they make a bowl unless things have really fallen apart internally. I think that some of the transfer losses that they lost may be overstated in impact, and Gundy has done a pretty good job with some of the mining of the small schools, much like he has done in his career with he's kind of obsessed with going and finding coordinators and stuff from some of these FCS or even D2. Yeah, exactly. Like D2 programs, JUCO, what have you. They lose Mason Cobb, but they get Justin Wright from Tulsa. And Mason Cobb's a better player, but I don't think it's an enormous downgrade. They couldn't stay healthy last year at quarterback. They go and they get Alan Bowman from Michigan, which I can't believe I'm touting Alan Bowman here, but when stuff doesn't make sense, I try to figure out maybe learn information until it does make sense to me. And my guess here is that Mike Gundy talked to Jim Harbaugh. And it's a total guess. I'm speculating. And Harbaugh's like, actually, this kid can really play, and you should take him, right? Somebody saw something in him at one point, and then didn't he get an injury at Michigan, like a weird one or something? I thought he got knocked out or
he had a collapsed lung when he was at Texas Tech.
Yeah, I thought he had something too. From is that the guy that got hit in the head by the punt? I think that Bowman is better than people think. I don't think Gundy has completely forgotten how to coach. I don't think they're going to win the league. I did bet them to win the league at 60-1. That got knocked down since then, but their path is pretty enticing. You get Central Arkansas, you go to Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham, who I like, is a first-time head coach. You host South Alabama. Look, I like South Alabama, but I mean, I don't think South Alabama is beating them. And at Iowa State. Wait, how many games did I list there? 4.
They should be 4-0 at that point.
If Iowa State has suspensions, they could be 1 game. They could be a whole season. They could be 4 games. That's the 4th ball game. So you get Iowa State as one of your road games, potentially with some Iowa State suspensions here. At West Virginia is not easy. Their other travel is at UCF and at Houston, which is a team without a whole lot of depth. You get very winnable games at home, Kansas, Cincinnati, BYU. Oklahoma at home's not easy, but we don't know if Venables can coach yet, so we'll see. I have this team winning like 7.3. So I am over here, and I think there is a real chance that they go to the Big 12 title game. Not likely, but I think it's more likely than 60-1. And then at that point, I will be hedging because I don't think they're like a Big 12 quality team. It's just kind of path and schedule.
So, as a fan that listens to the show a lot, I hear I got him at 7.2 and my power numbers are this, my power numbers are that. Sometimes I think it's a little overcomplicated. I look at the first 3 games and it's like, dude, they're winning those 3 games. And then you're telling me I get a bet on Mike Gundy to go 4-5 in conference and I'm over. Like this is an easy over. And dude, like for me, when I'm looking at the schedule, it's like I've got Central Florida, Houston, and BYU all moving up. BYU, I think, has played big boy schedules for the last 10 years. But like, hey, Central Florida, you don't get Navy and Army. And, I know Tulane had a good year last year, but like, you've got a full schedule. We watched that at Louisville, what the attrition does when you move to a Power 5 conference. I think it's an awesome schedule if you're an Oklahoma State fan. And I've been seeing it at 6.5. So knowing that it's 6, I don't think, knock on wood, famous last words, I don't think you can lose this bet. I'd love Oklahoma State over.
Oh, Wade's going to mush me. Oh, no, man.
No, dude. No. So, but don't worry. I'm that guy in the friends group where when I say it, it typically happens. So don't worry, dude. Like, we're good.
I will not just say that I would bet this. I will say I already have bet this. I'm very much on the over for Oklahoma State. Yep. I have Oklahoma State more likely winning 8 games than 6. So we talked about it. Like I'm with you guys. They're going 3-0 in non-con. I think they're beating Iowa State on the road more often than not. So there is a very good shot they're going into their bye at the end of September at 4-0, only needing 2 wins to push. And you look at this schedule. After the bye, they get Kansas State and Kansas at home. At home for both of those games is a good thing for Oklahoma State. West Virginia on the road, a very winnable game. And we talked about Oklahoma State getting 3 of the 4 new teams. Or I'm sorry, not Baylor getting 3 of the 4 new teams. Oklahoma gets all 4 of them. They've got Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and BYU, and they finish with UCF, Houston, and BYU at the very end. Like, I think this team is going to win 8 games. I'm much higher on Oklahoma State than the market is right now. I see Wade and Bud seem to agree with me on this one. I have no idea why the total is this low. So go Pokes.
Well, and then, dude, back to Bowman, it's like, dude, it's Mike Gundy with a quarterback that's got an arm. Like, that's all I need to know. Like that, I trust Gundy to put out a good quarterback.
And a power rating is going to look at returning production, and there's a lot of production from last season that's not going to be there. I mean, there's like 1 of their top 8 pass catchers is back from last year. And on the defensive side of the ball, tons of tackles, tons of sacks and tackles for loss are all gone. But, man, the schedule's so easy. I'm on the over. I like clean sweep here. It's not just the 4 newbies, Tom. It's the 4 newbies and West Virginia. Like that is one of the most favorable draws that I think that we have in the entire Big 12. And I Wade, I'm so happy, as the minister of vibes over here, that you came in and said, don't overcomplicate this with your 7.2 and your 6.8. Look at this. I'm asking Mike Gundy to go 4-5 in Big 12 play. Guy puts his boots on, hunts a couple rattlesnakes, and goes 5-4 or 4-5 in Big 12 play every single season.
Yep.
Let's go. Clean sweep.
Count them out.
Up next, we turn our attention to the Kansas Jayhawks. Amazing year. We saw it coming. We told y'all it was coming as everything got going at the end of year one with Lance Leipold. They were playing hard. They were dialed in. And then the jump finally happened. Jayhawks returning to a bowl game last season behind the electric quarterback Jalen Daniels. This year, now we've got some, actual expectations. Win total at 6 at Caesar Sportsbook -115 each way. Open the season on the Thursday night of week 1 against Missouri State, then Illinois at home in Lawrence, then at Nevada, BYU home, at Texas, UCF at home, and then at Oklahoma State before got their off week on October 21st. Back in action with Oklahoma at home, at Iowa State, Texas Tech at home, Kansas State at home, and then at Cincinnati to close. Wade, are we going to see the Jayhawks back in a bowl game in 2023?
What's the number?
6.
No. It's either a push or it's under. I'm going under. I mean, I think this is an overreaction to a miracle year. I look at the schedule again, and one, I think they're losing at home to Illinois. Not to make you feel good about yourself, Tom, but
pander to Tom.
I mean, dude, you literally have a first-round defensive line. I mean, it's kind of scary what you have on the interior. And I think the way Kansas beat people is, with phenomenal coach, and I love Leopold. We bet the over last year, but I think it's an overreaction. And the way the run game, the way Kansas used it, I think Illinois crushes that. So I think they start 2-1. I think BYU can beat them. BYU is built for teams like Kansas. And then I think they'll finally lose to Texas, right? And then after that, I think they lose to Oklahoma State. And I think they lose to Texas Tech, Kansas State, and they get Iowa State at Iowa State, which is, Kansas needs that game to be at home. So it's under.
Yeah, I'm under here. Not as hard. So I did bet the under 6.5 when this came out, right? I thought that 6 was more likely than 7. I do think that 5 is more likely than 7. This is not the push podcast, but I think 6 is probably the most likely outcome. I think Lance is a really good coach. I think some of the power ratings are baking in, if they use like a 3-year moving average, I think they're probably baking in 20 and 21 too hard. But Kansas was pretty good in close games last year at times. And then they also had some really bad field goal kicking stuff too. So that may get a little bit better this year. What really scares me about this team and what sticks in my head, the offense should still be really, really strong.
Yeah.
I think they might be really, really bad at the end. And if you can't rush the passer, I see some problems on this schedule for you, right? You could lose if you can't rush the passer at all, and they won't do this, but 0-9 in the Big 12 is on the table, right? You could lose every single game.
Well, every game's a toss up. That was what I was looking at is when I do my certified wins, certified losses and the toss ups, and you put in the Missouri State and you put in the Nevada, and I'm like, that's all that I can confidently say, because even teams that I think are worse than Kansas, those games are going to be on the road. I mean, it's a pretty tough schedule. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm totally with you there. You can't chalk up.
Score though. They'll score a bunch because it's a super experienced offense. It's a really well coached offense. I'm sure they didn't have to go over the basics very much this spring. They're probably putting in a ton of stuff. You play Kansas, all of a sudden, oh look, this guy's running wide ass open in our secondary again. That's concerning. I just don't know if defense to me is more talent than coaching, and I don't know if they got the guys.
This is the coin flippiest of coin flips to me. My actual play here is a push. I have Kansas projected genuinely at 6.1 wins. So when I say I have a slight push towards the over, it is just like this much of a push towards the over. I think that Illinois game decides the entire thing. Like, if they can win that game, I think they can get over, because I think they'll do pretty well in the Big 12. But my problem with that Illinois game is it reminds me exactly of what we saw last year. Illinois opened the season at home against Wyoming on a Saturday, then went on the road and played Indiana on a short week on a Friday night. Illinois opens the season this year at home against Toledo, who's better than Wyoming, and then is heading to Kansas to play the Jayhawks on the road on a short week on a Friday night. And I think that Kansas offense is going to be good. And you just mentioned it, Bud. They do a really good job of getting guys open. As awesome as Illinois' defensive line is going to be, they have a very inexperienced secondary. Everybody from that unit is gone. So in the second week of the year against that Kansas offense, I feel like that could be a problem for the Illini defense, and it could turn into a shootout. And I don't know if Illinois is really equipped yet to be winning in a shootout like that. So I do think Kansas is the favorite in that game. So I give them the slight edge there, and that's why I'm giving them, I guess, a slight over. But this is a push. They're going 6-6, and they'll be thrilled to be 6-6 in bowling.
Yeah, and it'll be that Bud has mentioned on here that there is like some math that backs up the idea that all 5.5s you bet to the over just because of the, intangibles. Like, what's the likelihood they're going to be able to get it to a 6th win? And they'll probably figure out a way to get to a 6th win. I don't think they get to a 7th. So I'm slightly to the under on this one.
How many kids are going to win this fall?
I just saw 6.5 is still available, and I feel very comfortable betting that under.
Yeah, you got to lay -50, but yeah.
Yep.
All right, so the Iowa State Cyclones. We have discussed this. We have referenced this. There are players who are reportedly involved in sports gambling investigation. There are players who did not make it to Big 12 Media Days. I was actually speaking with someone today to brush up on the potential punishments that could be out there. And like Bud has mentioned, we could be talking about 4 games. We could be talking about half a season. We could be talking about a whole season. We probably won't even know till week 1. Week 1, the opponent is Northern Iowa at home. Then we get the Cy-Hawk, as this game will be in Ames, Iowa at home, then at Ohio, Oklahoma State at home, at Oklahoma, TCU at home, at Cincinnati, off on October 21st. Back in action for the final 5 games at Baylor, Kansas at home, at BYU, Texas at Kansas State. Tom, what are we doing with this one?
Staying the hell away from it. That is my official advice, because there is the looming specter of the possible suspensions that really complicate everything. Just if I eliminate all that and do Iowa State at quote unquote full strength, again, it's a push with a very slight edge towards the over, because it's just I don't think they're as bad as they were last year, nor do I think they're as good as they were the few years before. But I just think I look at the situation, and we can talk about the suspensions. Obviously, if they're hit with a bunch of suspensions, that's going to crush them. So if you want to bet on that, taking the under, I think makes a ton of sense. But like, you look at that game that second week against Iowa could have suspensions. Let's not overlook the fact that Noah
Iowa
Shannon
and Iowa State. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Noah Shannon is not at Big Ten Media Days this week because he's currently one of those athletes at Iowa under investigation for for sports gambling. And maybe he ends up getting suspended. Maybe other Hawkeyes end up getting suspended. I don't know. So again, when I go through this schedule, there's so much in the air that is unknown that I'm not going to make an official play, but just in a vacuum, I think they're 2-1 at best in their non-con, because even if they beat Iowa, at Ohio is not going to be a pushover. The Bobcats, Ohio is a wagon. Oklahoma State at home and Oklahoma on the road, probable loss. TCU at home is tough. Cincinnati on the road should be a win. Baylor on the road, I've got them losing. They can win. They can beat Kansas at home. I don't think they're going to beat BYU on the road. They're not going to beat Texas, although beating Texas wouldn't be a surprise for Iowa State. It's just kind of what they do sometimes. And then Kansas State on the road. So like every game I look at for the most part is a coin flip. So again, I really don't have any strong feelings on any of this.
Yeah, this is a 5.5. I forgot if I introduced that. And then the quarterback is Hunter Deckers, who, we also got freshman JJ Cole also in that room. And, we got to see what Matt Campbell's going to be able to do at the quarterback position. I found myself being too generous with my toss-ups in my win-loss toss-up analysis. And so I was like, all right, let's be realistic as we go through and reevaluate the toss-ups. Like when I'm calling, Iowa State against Oklahoma State, a toss-up, I'm probably being a little bit too generous there. When I'm doing that and saying the TCU game is a toss-up, I'm probably being a little too generous there, even though both of those games are in Ames. I think 5-7 looks very likely here. I'm on the under.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've got to lean under, especially if they're going to be barraged with a bunch of suspensions. Because, I mean, they could be 1-2 or 0-3. Having Oklahoma State come in if they're hammered with suspensions, because Tom, we know Ohio covers. That's what they do.
That's damn right.
They're a wagon.
So and the other thing is when you look at the state of a program, I sit there and look at Iowa State and I look at Matt Campbell and I'm like, dude, is this just like the guy that was at North Texas, Luttrell, where it's like, buddy, you needed to cash in 2 seasons ago. And
he did cash in though. Got a big contract. I mean, but yeah, as far as job jumping,
and I mean, but the flip side of that is you bet on Campbell when they're underrated and you fade him when they're overrated. So, this feels like this is where Matt Campbell could duct tape it together and put together a 6-6 if it's 5.5. So I think it's a stay away. But for the show, I think you got to go under.
I bet under 6 at I think -10. I bet under 5.5 at +125. It's now -130. I mean, it's a 55-cent move. So a lot of the value there on the 5.5 is gone. I'm still going to take under for the show. I think Iowa's a better team than them at full strength.
Yes.
If they both have suspensions, I anticipate that Iowa State's suspensions are worse. The guys who they didn't bring to media day scare me. Like these are not the guys I would have brought. I mean, TJ Tampa's a good player, but you don't bring the quarterback. You don't bring your best D lineman, your best O lineman. You lose. I mean, you lose Hutchinson, who had 163 targets. That's more than their next 3 guys combined.
And Jalen Noel around more.
Dude, Jalen Noel is the guy that they're hyping. He had an 11.5% drop rate last year, which is unfathomably bad. Not a dependable target. There's not a lot of evidence that Matt Canada's teams play good offense. Right? We give Iowa a lot of crap for not. Excuse me. Yes, Matt Canada.
But Matt Canada criticisms probably stick to.
Yeah.
1,000,000%. Look,
Sorry
we give
for the
Iowa.
strain,
No. I'm glad because we would have clipped that and it would have been terrible. I mean, where's the evidence they can play good offense? I haven't really seen it, so I'm gonna go under. It's hard to overachieve your talent level that many years in a row, and they did lose some X-Man was really, really good. Will McDonald is a player that Iowa State typically doesn't have a guy like that. And
a lot of the Matt Campbell
they're a bottom
success. A lot of the Matt Campbell success is when he had NFL running backs, legitimate NFL running backs that were out there being able to keep things steady.
But Michigan fans are going to crap all over me for this. I don't want senior running backs. If you're really that good, you would have gone pro at running back to me. Sorry.
And then Chip, though, how funny would it be? Texas rolls into Ames against a 3-7 Iowa State, and then all of a sudden just lays that Iowa State egg. Dude, it has all the makings. It has all the makings of Sark just rocking, and then just going in to terrible weather, rain, and a muddy field in Iowa State, and just having the bottom fall out.
That would be the game where here Steve Sarkisian in his 10th year has never had a 10-win season, and it's because of games like that.
Yep.
It's because at least once a year you're gonna go and you're gonna lay an egg. All right. So I'm on. Is everybody on the under here for the show?
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Count them up.
Oh, Neil Brown. Not a lot of obvious hot seat candidates in college football this year when you're doing your hot seat column. But Neil Brown is pretty much at the consensus at the top of all of these. So what does that mean for their win total? What does it mean for the West Virginia Mountaineers on the field as their win total at Caesars Sportsbook is currently set at -5.5, heavily juiced to the under? Well, they open at Penn State. Then they get their home opener against Duquesne, Pitt comes to town. Loving the rivalry, obviously. Then Texas Tech at home, at TCU, off on October 7th. Back in action at Houston. Oklahoma State at home, at UCF. BYU at home, at Oklahoma. Cincinnati at home, at Baylor. West Virginia Mountaineers, 5.5 or 5. I mean, where do we think this ends for the Mountaineers? Tom?
Can I go?
Oh, yeah, go away.
Wade, you can go.
Dude, under.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I mean, I know West Virginia is a tough place to play, but we've done it many times when we were in the Big East with Louisville. Those fans will turn on Neil Brown in a hurry. And, I mean, dude, they're going to go and get blasted by Penn State. They'll beat Duquesne. And then I think Jerkovich will still be healthy because it's only week 3 for Pitt. So I think Pitt goes in there and beats them. I think Texas Tech does. Then they go to TCU. I mean, dude, if you can bet on it, if there's a market for it, I would bet on Neil Brown being fired in the off week. Like that. That's how I feel about West Virginia coming into this year. I think they start 1-4, and then after that, they're not going to win at Baylor or at Oklahoma. They'll lose to Oklahoma State. I mean, this feels like 3-9, 4-8 all day.
That's what I got. Give me 3-9. Let's go exact win total 3 at the Super Plus money. I think Duquesne is the only certified win. I think that Penn State, Pitt, Texas Tech, TCU, even at UCF, at Baylor, and at Oklahoma are all certified losses. This team is not getting to a bowl game. 3-9, 4-8. Like it is. This is one of my best bets for the Big 12, and it feels mean. So I don't love to say it because I'm just out here like, yeah, they're gonna stink. But this is the worst team in the conference. I'm going under.
I'm on the under, but I don't think it's the worst team in the conference. Like I know there's a lot of reasons to be skeptical about this team. And again, if Neil Brown is fired, and I think we kind of all think there's a very real, highly good shot of that happening, the bottom could fall out and they could very much just kind of, limp to the finish line. But I do think this is like a 5-win team. I'm on the under. I don't think they're going to be 3-9 or 2-10. I think that there are winnable games. I think they could beat Duquesne. I think they could beat Texas Tech at home. I think they could beat Oklahoma State at home. I think they could beat BYU at home. I think they could beat Cincinnati at home. So I don't think this is going to be a putrid, terrible team. I just think that it's a very difficult situation. And if they do get off to a slow start, things could snowball. And with a non-conference schedule that includes at Penn State and Pitt, there's a pretty decent chance they could get off to a slow start in non-con. So under.
Yeah, the slow start definitely scares me here. I think their passing game might really suck, but I think they're going to be able to run the ball okay.
All right, so CJ Donaldson running the ball, like I'm okay. I'll back bottom tier. Maybe not the
no. You're on wax. Worst team in the league.
You're on worst team in the league, and I don't think so. Like, I do have them favored against Cincinnati and BYU. And those are both in Morgantown. You get Texas Tech to come to town. You get Oklahoma State to come to town, but I'm still on the under here because I don't think they can throw the ball well enough. I am concerned about what they lost on the defensive line repeatedly. I mean, and you lost guys to the NFL. You lost guys in the last few years who are playing on other teams in college and playing well. Like they lost Mesidor to Miami last year, and he wasn't great. They're very happy with him per their early returns at AC Media, and he is expected, I believe, to start for them. So. Or at least play a lot, and I'm very interested to see how this goes. Like I like some of their linebackers, and the secondary is rebuilt. Let's put it charitably. So maybe they are better on defense than I think. I don't think they're the worst team in the league, but I do think that they will miss a bowl.
Under, and I got a little too tipsy on the moonshine, and I place them below Cincinnati. That was my fault, West Virginia. That was disrespectful. You should not be 14th. But your bottom tier, not far from it. All right.
Just saying, they got guns. You need to be careful what you say about West Virginia.
Dude,
you ended up in Morgantown.
Trust me. You got to be careful in Morgantown at all times. It gets rough.
We will be back Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We got a couple news headlines that have been building up through the week, including 4-game suspension for Jim Harbaugh as a result of that NCAA investigation. We've got an interesting staff addition for Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini. And of course, just sort of the headlines and takeaways from here in Charlotte at ACC Media Days. So come hang out with us Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. Thank you, Wade, for your charitable contribution to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. We loved having you hang out here on the Big 12 Win Totals pod. There is an auction going right now. If you would like to come hang out and talk ACC on August the 2nd for that ACC Win Totals pod. So go ahead and hit that up. Get involved in that auction if interested. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.